Rowland, and I own Nantahala Brewing Company.
What did you take away from the Asheville Beer Expo? There was a lot of panel discussions and a lot of conversation about what's next and where we're at. And I know you were one of the key speakers there. What was your thoughts going into it and then coming away from it?
I think it was a good, second go round. We didn't have quite as many people come as we did last year. Attendee wise, but that was always sort of designed to be that way. It was something that, what's the evolution of a beer festival? Because with some of those law changes and whatnot, we were trying to find ways where volunteers can pour beer and incorporate the other members who are not brewers who are part of the Asheville Brewers Alliance, and to give people, especially home brewers, a chance to talk to a lot of us one-on-one and to kind of hear firsthand from a lot of us, where we see things going, and just to be able to answer questions. It was real successful last year because you actually get to interact with people as opposed to there being thousands of people there just trying to taste a bunch of beers.
What is the relationship between the ABA and the ALE? Because, I always thought that everyone's trying to be on the same page, but then you always hear rumors that they're out to get the ABA and blah, 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 blah.
No, it's been great. We haven't really had any issues. There's the normal stuff that goes on, but, at the end of the day, man, for the most part, they're just doing their job. The rules are the rules, and whether you're a brewery or not, some people end up, with infractions, and some of it, I think most of that is just maybe not knowing what the rules are, and there's so many of us involved in, brewing these days. I don't know where we're at statewide, but I think we're over 200. All different walks of life, some are homebrewers, some are investors, and not everybody's always real clear on what you can and can't do. Exactly,
and I also feel that if anybody would want to be in good standing with the ALE, it would obviously be the ABA.
Oh, yeah. All of us, man, we've got a lot invested. Not to say that there are some restaurants and bars out there that don't also have a lot invested in their facilities, but, when you start talking about manufacturing alcohol, there's a lot of investment involved, and I know that I don't take it lightly, and we still learn though. There are times when we get our annual inspections, and the guys are real nice and try to be helpful. And if there's a rule change or if there's something they notice that we maybe overlooked, they've been pretty good about pointing it out. And of course, we're going to fix it. It's not because we weren't trying to abide by the rules. We just maybe didn't know all of them.
Yeah.
So
well, and with the Beer Expo, from at least my perspective, the question that I saw on everyone's mind was the word saturation ? And it was on the cover of the ACT, the Asheville Citizen-Times, last week.
Yep.
It's always in the air, but then it always seems every time it's in the air, there's still always room for more breweries. Where do you see that, and how do you address that question?
I think that we're at the point where things are evolving beyond just being local. I still think that hyper-local movement is there and will stay there. It's very similar to the whole farm-to-table, slow food movement. I don't see it going away, but I do see people, craft beer consumers. We've done a really good job, not just we, but collectively. I think we have done a great job of educating them about the different beer styles and quality. And I think now they recognize that. Not to say that there weren't folks out there that didn't realize that before, but I feel like there's a much larger group of people now who know the difference between really good quality beer and beer that's not great quality. And so I think that focus, which has been a national one, the Brewers Association made it a key part of their goal to make sure that we didn't run back into what happened in the 80s and having a lot of folks out there making beer that wasn't very good. So I think that's becoming more important than just being local.
Well, and then people always say, if there's 40 plus breweries in the Asheville metro area, including Western North Carolina, but there's 300 in Portland, Oregon. But Portland, Oregon is also a much larger city population wise than Asheville, and I wonder do you see that being a little crowded? I guess what I'm saying is the big question is how much shelf space left is what I see. There's always space for breweries to open and have tap rooms, but it seems like shelf space is at a minimum these days.
I see that, but it hasn't affected us so much. We all have challenges of getting into the chains and being able to prove that our brand, really does sell. Depletions are very important when you get to the production brewing side of things. If you put your beer on the shelf next to all the other beers that are on the shelf and your beer doesn't sell, then they're going to replace it with something else.
Yeah.
Especially now. It used to be that they were just trying to fill up that space, but now there are more than just the basic options available. They're looking for things that are going to move. I mean, you look at it from a real estate standpoint, is the way I always think about it. You know, it's their space, and they want to maximize their return on the investment on that space.
Yeah.
And I see that happening more and more too. And they are getting more focused on local because it's what people want. But you can also tell that they're paying real close attention to quality, not just from the older breweries like us, but from the newer ones too. And I think that there's going to be a time. I said this at the expo. I felt this way for several years now. You got to figure out what you want to be, when you grow up when it comes to brewing. Is there room for you to be a production brewery out there still? Absolutely. Is there room for some of us to be nationwide breweries? Maybe in special circumstances. Is there room for some more regional breweries? I think for sure. And I definitely think there's more room for local breweries, especially in our market, because our market is driven by tourism. Yeah. So, if I looked at the pure number of people who live in Bryson City, I would be out of my mind to open a brewery here because there's only like 1,400 of us. But, we get our millions of people who come through here every day or every year.
And I see a lot of those outpost towns that still haven't had one brewery yet.
Yeah. Some of those are real challenge, man. I mean, as a production brewery, we still have the challenge of being seasonal on the retail side of our business. And we're moving away from that as we get into some of the larger markets like Atlanta that are not seasonal markets where we're relevant. And that'll help us, but at the same time, the retail aspect of it is incredibly important, which is, why we've chosen to look at other ways that we can expand the retail side of our business.
Well, one of the things that I was telling people is I think that there's always going to be room for new breweries and new products, simply based on the fact that this is an industry that's not going anywhere, that this is a hobby, this is a lifestyle, just like going out to eat in the 80s, going out to a brewery now in this decade is what it's all about. And with that said, when people say, do you think it's saturated, I say no, but I add to it by saying, yet I don't think you can get away with coming out of the gates stumbling like you could 10 years ago.
No.
You have to come out of the gates hot, hitting the ground running.
I think so. I also think too, man, that there's definitely going to be some consolidation, and there's going to be some people who don't make it. They're going to go out of business for a lot of reasons. I think the number one reason is going to be quality of product, and it'll be a shame if it happens and the way it is interpreted is, oh well, it's too saturated, we can't support all these breweries. If you look at it from a real basic standpoint, if you don't run a good business, then you're not going to be successful. And that has nothing to do with saturation. That just has to do with having a great product, maintaining that product, knowing how to get that product to your consumers, and paying real close attention to the bottom line. Not overextending yourself financially.
And the bottom line too for a lot of what I was thinking is that no matter how much money or whatever you have, it comes down to, well, is your beer any good?
Yeah.
As a product being sacrificed. But with Nantahala, the amount of leaps and bounds that this place has gone through, what's 2017 hold? I mean, the restaurant just opened, the brewery's expanding. What else is on the market for you? Well, we'll just hold out for today. But what else is on the market for, or on tap, I guess, for Nantahala going into 2017? Now that the restaurant's open.
Now the restaurant's open, we're going to kind of see what happens here. And, we've got some improvements we're going to make to our tap room as well. We've got food coming down there in a different capacity, which will help us, increase our sales there. And then we're getting ready to start selling beer in Georgia. We actually ship beer to Georgia this week. And we also have expanded our North Carolina footprint to include Fayetteville and
so you're almost
the military base.
How many counties now? Over 60 maybe? Or
I guess there's 100 counties in the state, so we're probably pretty close to 60, 65 of them.
And then didn't you open up in East Tennessee, Nashville?
Yeah, we're all the way to Nashville. We're actually slightly beyond Nashville. The only town we're not in is in Memphis. And that's kind of true for not just us, but a lot of brands.
Yeah.
A lot of us, all the way up to like Terrapin, hasn't really found a good fit for a beer distributor in Memphis. But I think at some point, someone will figure it out and we'll all jump on board with them. But, for me, it's really just more focusing on the markets from a distribution standpoint that we're relevant in, and we've added some salespeople here recently to help us, kind of maximize our sales in those markets, and we're going to add some more as we move along. And we're looking at a few other key markets where folks come from to visit this area on a regular basis that it'll appear as if we're skipping over some places, but we're just looking at where are we relevant.
Yeah.
There's no point in going and selling beer everywhere if you're not relevant there, because it takes the same amount of resources to sell beer in a town where nobody knows you, and in some cases more resources than to go to places where people know your brand, know your beer, and are asking for it. So that's kind of what we're looking at, and that's nothing crazy new. There's a lot of much older craft brewery brands that have been doing that for years. So
what were your barrel numbers at the end of 2016?
I haven't really looked at exactly where you were, but somewhere around 5,000 barrels.
And then where are you hoping to be at the end of 2017?
I think we'll probably get to somewhere between 8,500 and 9, maybe more. But for us, once again, we're trying to keep that slow burn, grow where it makes sense, and it's going to be really contingent upon how things go, not just on the production side but on the retail side. Because the big question for us was, I've looked at some of our peers up in Asheville, and they opened up multiple facilities, and asking them, well, hey, do people still go to your original brewery, or do they all just flock over to the new one? And it's mixed responses, but for the most part, people support their multiple locations. But here we are in a completely different place with a lot less people. And we had a big question about, well, when we open up the restaurant, is the taproom number, are those numbers going to decline? And they haven't. They've actually grown on the same pace we thought they would. And this has been the busiest February for us across the board. So I don't see that going away. And that's going to consume a lot more of our liquid, because we're selling really more than double by having the two places.
And every year the brewery is always expanding, whether it's the philosophy, the brand, or even just retail.
Mm-hmm.
But I feel like this is like a real pinnacle start to a year for the brewery, obviously with the restaurant and the expansion of the brewing capacity.
Yep.
What does this brand mean to you nowadays, now that you've had a few years to sit on it and to see it grow, and yet it's kind of taken on a life of its own?
Yeah.
But what's that mean for you as not only a co-founder, brewer, and business owner, and just a resident of Swain County and West North Carolina?
It's been huge. Going back to that, determining who you are and what you want to be. We are definitely a lifestyle brand. People have emotional connections to the Nantahala brand way beyond just us making beer. And we've always known that, but to really understand the extent of it, that's something that has come with time. And it's been really cool to see that people support us across the board, whether it's coming to the tap room, coming to the restaurant, draining Ingles here in town of our beer every single day. To see that kind of support has been huge for us, and it's helped me make some really good decisions in terms of where we should put our resources.